What's going on, everybody? Welcome to the YouTube Sports Network. I hope everyone's having a good day. It is Sunday, October 12th, 4:03 p.m. And I would like to be pretty brief here today at this moment because the game I want to talk about and the player that I want to talk about is actually starting his game at 4:25, and that is none other than Joe Flacco. So the Bengals recently traded for Joe Flacco a couple of days ago, which threw me off a little bit. First of all, interdivision, the same division trading with each other. Odd, very odd. Uh, it does happen in sports, but if it does happen, you would never think that it would happen during the season, right? That's very odd. So for it to happen alone is odd, but to happen during the season is super odd. So it goes to show you that, for instance, the Red Sox would never trade with the Yankees, right? And if they have in the past, and a couple of times over the last few years, maybe more than we know, but it's always like in the off season, and players that you think won't have immediate impacts or major impacts against each other. Greg Weissert was the most recent one that was traded, a relief pitcher from the Yankees to the Red Sox. I think that's the most recent trade between them. But anyway, the Brewers aren't going to trade with the Cubs. The Padres aren't going to trade with the Dodgers. Stuff like that. So the Bengals and the Browns, same division, they traded with each other. Clearly, they're not concerned about each other's. Bengals aren't really concerned about the Browns, and the Browns aren't concerned about the Bengals. The two teams that I guess they got to worry about most is the Ravens and the Steelers ahead of them. So I guess they did themselves a favor. The Browns did them a favor. They let Joe Flacco. And the Browns did Joe Flacco a favor and sent them off to a team that is going to use them maybe more long-term than the Browns are because they do have 5 quarterbacks. Dylan Gabriel, the 3rd-round pick, is now the starter. Shedeur Sanders is the 5th-round pick, which we all know he probably shouldn't have gone there. In fact, before the season, you could have placed bets on him to be the number 1 pick. So those bookies made a good amount of money for those people who decided to make that bet. Kenny Pickett, I don't even know where Kenny Pickett is now, but he was traded to the Browns, or the Browns traded for him in the offseason. So that was weird. One of the only quarterbacks in the league to, I think besides Teddy Bridgewater, to actually wear a glove on his throwing hand. And that's Kenny Pickett. And then you'll still have Deshaun Watson, who's in the background. He's training. He's making his way back from injury and all that. So that's the depth chart. And the Browns love to employ and use a number of quarterbacks. It's maybe by choice, by design, or it just so happens to not work out for them. But this is like 40 quarterbacks in like the last 20 years. So that's the case. So very odd that those two teams traded with each other. And I immediately thought to myself, this post has a lot to do with this one person. And I just want to mention this person because I thought this would have been a good spot for him. And I guess after the statement that this coach, Zach Taylor, said that maybe it makes sense, maybe that they didn't pick this person, but he said that the reason why he's not going to be playing Jake Browning, who is the interim starting quarterback, or who was the second string turned starter since Joe Burrow got hurt, because Joe Burrow got hurt. This is why this is all happening. Joe Burrow hurt his toe early in the season. I think it was turf toe. He'll be out for 3 months. So Jake Browning's come in, and he's gone 6 touchdowns, 8 interceptions, right? So more interceptions than touchdowns. Zach Taylor recently, or just recently, said they got Flacco and they named him the starter basically, or essentially immediately, is because Browning has to stop turning the ball over. All right, I understand. You turn the ball over, you lessen your chance to win. But it's very odd is that Joe Flacco has 2 touchdowns and 6 interceptions. Browning has 6 touchdowns, 8 picks. Flacco has 2 touchdowns, 6 picks. Flacco is also 40 years old, and he's very immobile, right? He's just very upright, great arm, yeah, sure, smart guy, but he's immobile. Now, I just find that kind of odd. I mean, Joe Flacco has a lot of stain in the game, He might be a part of a club that, none of us can ever sniff, and besides the NFL. Something's up with this guy. I don't know. Somehow, some way, he's always around. He's played with the Colts last year. He played with the Browns a couple seasons ago. He's played with the Jets for a couple seasons. This is all after leaving the Ravens. Where else did he go? Immediately. Where else did he go? Adrian's texting me, my brother's texting me, and I bet you this has to do with George Pickens. I'm going to open this up and just say it anyway because I want to see. Did you start Pickens? He asked me. I knew it. That's because we were talking about it before the game. I had to make some lineup decisions. And Pickens, by the way, it's not like I never wanted to play you. I mean, I've been starting you all year, okay? I'm pretty sure I've started you all year. And I am a big fan of you. We drafted you last year as well when you were with the Steelers. And, whatever. We're not going to go down this path. This is how somehow I get to 20, 25 plus minutes when I'm talking about this. Yes, I did start Pickens, and I'm very proud and very happy with what he did, Adrian. Thank you, George Pickens. So, let me get back on track here. So now they turn to Flacco, and I'm just thinking, damn, I didn't know about that comment about the turnovers. I didn't know about that. But my first thought was, damn it, what happened to Jameis Winston? How come Jameis Winston can't get an opportunity? I thought that would have been a good spot for him. You have Jamar Chase, you have T. Higgins, probably the best, one of the best, top 5 wide receiver duo in the league, right? And you have a guy like Winston who can really throw the ball downfield and who can really make some throws. But if that was their main concern about having turnovers or, possibly somebody, their quarterback still turning the ball over, I guess they figured they might as well just keep Browning if we're going to have somebody that's going to throw, a good amount of picks, some untimely picks. So I can give you a rundown of everything that's going on with Winston. I would like to give a little bit of a backdrop on him. Maybe another time I'll really go in detail. But let's just say this. In 2019, he led the league in pass attempts. He led the league in passing yards. He had 5,109 passing yards. I think he had 626 pass attempts. This is a Bruce Arians offense. He likes to throw the ball out. He also had, I think, 33 touchdown passes, and he had 30 interceptions. It's either 33 touchdowns, 33 or 30 touchdowns, but he led the league in interceptions with 30. It's either 33 or 30. I can't remember. It's interchangeable. At this point, it doesn't quite matter. The point is that he had at least 30 interceptions, which led the league. So, Winston basically played himself out of Tampa Bay at that point, which is pretty interesting because he had 5,000 passing yards, and you would think a guy that throws for 5,000 yards, like, what the hell are you going to get rid of him? But there wasn't much mistake-free football. So they, at the end of that season, the speculation was real. Tom Brady was trying to figure out what team he was going to go to, and then he wound up going to Tampa Bay, and he helped them win a championship. He helped them win a Super Bowl. A few years ago, I wrote a paper about Tampa Bay and Derek Carr, and I thought they could have been connected. And I thought that maybe Derek Carr and how his brand of football, with the type of football defensively, and the type of team that Tampa Bay was, I thought that match could have maybe got them to a point that they haven't been in a while, which is into the playoffs. Possibly, I didn't say Super Bowl. I don't remember if I said Super Bowl, but I thought that would have worked. But they went with Tom Brady instead, and Tom Brady obviously was the right choice, Mr. Hall of Famer, Mr. 7-time champion. So they never turned to Winston. Winston wound up going to the Saints. He worked 1 year underneath Drew Brees. In 2020, he got to see Drew Brees operate an offense, totally different brand of football that Winston was used to, or at least put forth with his stats. Drew Brees is a high completion percentage, doesn't throw many interceptions, more methodical. So then after Drew Brees left in 2010, 2011, 2020, 2021 was, you would think that Jameis Winston would get more of an opportunity, but he had 7 starts. He went 5-2. He threw for 14 touchdowns, 3 picks. He had 102.8 rating, which was the best QB rating, which was the best of his career. He still had 59% completion percentage. You might get that from Jameis, but he didn't turn the ball over, and he threw for 167 yards. That's obviously that's not what we're used to for Jameis when he was averaging like 300 plus passing yards with Tampa Bay a couple of years prior. But unfortunately, they also started Trevor Siemian that year. The Saints did at quarterback. He went 0-4. I say unfortunately for Winston's sake. And Taysom Hill, who they just couldn't get enough of, they loved him. He went 4-1 as a record as a quarterback with the Saints. Tight end wide receiver, tight end, quarterback, running back. He did it all, and Sean Payton still wanted to play him over Winston. I'm pretty sure it was Sean Payton. If that wasn't Sean Payton, that was Dennis Allen. And if it wasn't, the next year, I'm pretty sure it was Dennis Allen. So that didn't work out, or at least he didn't get to hold on to the starter spot. And Andy Dalton was brought in and got more starts. I mean, so then 2023, Derek Carr was signed for 4 years, 140, and basically, it's funny how this all comes full circle as far as the people I'm mentioning. But Derek Carr became the quarterback. He played, and he didn't have a winning record. Actually, he went 9-8 with the Saints that year in 2023, and then last year he went 5-5. Derek Carr, but Jameis Winston wasn't there. So at this point, in 2023, Jameis wasn't playing much, and then he went over to Cleveland last year, had some spurts. He threw for 497 yards, 4 touchdowns, 3 picks against a thrilling game against the Broncos, but that was a crazy game. So he did that, and then he started his first game with Cleveland and threw for 3 touchdowns, no picks, beat Baltimore. So that was a crazy game. His first start, Cleveland, he leads Cleveland to a win over Baltimore. That's a big deal considering that the Browns rarely ever beat Baltimore. So, but he did go 2-5, and he threw for 13 touchdowns, 12 picks, and 80.6 QB rating. So they didn't turn to. So this time around, then Winston gets signed by the Giants this offseason. 2 years, $8 million. But a possibility to earn up to $16 million with incentives. But being that Russell Wilson, Jackson Dart, and Jameis was the quarterback rotation, or at least the depth chart, it was going to be tough for Winston to crack the lineup. But as the highest paid, I'm pretty sure I have to look at it. He has to be the highest paid third-string quarterback in the league. He thought, maybe at one point, if an opportunity opened up, if not with the Giants, he'd be able to get shipped off to another team. And I thought, damn it. Gronkowski mentioned, hey, why don't Winston get traded to the Bengals? So yes, he was right. That was a good opportunity. That was a good spot. But they didn't go that way. They probably figured, with the turnover possibilities, we weren't going that way. But it was just interesting because recently it just came out, I think yesterday, if not yesterday, it was today, that the Bengals were considering picking up Sam Howell, who was the backup quarterback for the Eagles. They were considering picking up Davis Mills, who is a quarterback, one of the backups, or is the backup for the Texans. And then they were also considering about poaching Derek Carr, ironically, out of retirement. And Derek Carr retired last season with $30 million. He forfeited $30 million for the year so he can retire. He thought his health, his career, his family, and all that was more important than the money, which is very rare and, it's not common in these days as we know it. It's very difficult for somebody to walk away from that. So obviously, I feel like if anything, it's going to come back and good fortune for him. So that's just what they were considering. The Bengals were. So I just find it, this is more of my, don't worry, Jameis, hang in there. Everything's going to work out for you. Maybe one day you'll get another opportunity to start. And he paid his dues. He had a tough, going from college to the NFL, they were getting on him because he stole some crab legs. All right, a 19-year-old kid stole something, or like whatever he was. Okay. I think as a freshman, if I'm not mistaken, he helped Florida State win the national championship. If it wasn't a freshman, I don't remember exactly what year of his eligibility he was. He did that. I forget when. But I'm pretty sure they had an undefeated record and they won the national championship. I might be bugging out completely, but I thought that might have happened. I think that's also the same team that had Jalen Ramsey as well. Okay? This is Florida State. Very good, very, very good players, especially during those times. Now, that's just my point. I mean, I can run it down as far as Mills. Mills, if we can, give you a quick synapse or give you a quick little factual statements here about these guys. Davis Mills is 26. He was a third-round pick in 2021. His first year in the league, his head coach was David Culley. David Culley was the most random hire probably in the world at that time. I mean, he was a long-time NFL assistant. I think he was with the Ravens, but then Texans wound up hiring him, and I think they went like 2-15 that season. It was like 1-15, 2-14. Not very good at all. And that season, he went 2-9, Davis Mills. And then the next year, Lovie Smith just developed this big beard over time. And that was always catching my eye. But that season, he went 3-10-1, Davis Mills. But he wound up having, in his career up till now, 35 touchdown passes and 25 picks. I think he's a very tough quarterback. I think he's a guy that maybe might be able to stick around in the league for a while. He hasn't played in the last couple of seasons because they have C.J. Stroud, the Texans. So, how his career is going to turn out, we're not sure. He's not going to play much behind Stroud, obviously. But I think that was an interesting name to pop up. Sam Howell, this is a guy who is like Gardner Minshew. In a way, maybe like Ryan Fitzpatrick. He's kind of like got that brand of football. One day he'll throw 4 touchdowns, 1 pick. One day he'll throw no touchdowns, 3 picks. That type of up and down type of football. And in fact, for his career, Sam Howell, he has 22 picks, 22 touchdowns, and 23 interceptions. So I'm assuming the Bengals were like, yeah, this kid's got some talent, but we're trying to play more mistake-free football. So we think that maybe Howell is best to be left on the Eagles roster and let them use him if they needed to. But it's interesting because Howell has already been traded 3 times. One of them was 2024, March 14th. He was traded to Seattle. And then this year, April 26, 2025, he was traded from Seattle to Minnesota. And just a few months later, on my birthday, August 24th, he was traded from the Vikings to the Eagles. So there's been also picks attached on all those trades, but just at this point, it's not quite necessary to mention that. But this is a guy, and I want to get this in. It's interesting that they may have traded for him because Seattle did, and then the Eagles did, because 2023, when he was a member of the Commanders, formerly of the Washington football team, formerly of the Washington Redskins, currently known as the Washington Commanders, and I think at that time he was drafted was the Washington football team. 2022 he was drafted, right? 2023 against Seattle, in Seattle, they lost 29-26, Washington did, but he threw for 312 yards, 3 touchdowns, no interceptions, 109.3 rating. Against Philly, they lost that same season, 38-31 loss, but he went 39 for 52, which is 75% completion percentage, 397 yards, 4 touchdowns, 1 pick, 114 rating. So he's flashed. And it's interesting that the 2 teams that he's flashed in front of and showcased his skills wind up eventually trading for him in subsequent years. So that's interesting. So sometimes that can happen that way. But then there's also the stretch, and this is the last 7 games of 2023. This is Howell. He went 0-7 record in his last 7 games, 57.7 completion percentage, 55.5 rating, and 4 touchdowns, 12 interceptions, including a game in which he went 6 for 22, which is 27% completion percentage, 56 yards, no touchdowns, 2 picks. That was on Christmas. Maybe we have to forgive him considering that maybe he was thinking about the gifts that he has to give his family, or maybe he was thinking about the gifts he may receive. But regardless, and I'm not trying to dog the guy, I'm just giving stats. Maybe that's the reason why they were unsure, is because you got a lot of boom and you got a lot of boom and bust. So those are the guys that they were considering, and those are some of the stats of the guys that of the Bengals. Those are some of the stats that the Bengals of the guys that the Bengals were considering. So I'm just here to plead for Jameis. Jameis, I don't know what team you're going to go to. I hope no injury occurs for the Giants that you have to play. But if they do turn to you, I hope you do well. And also, maybe you should go to the Dolphins. Maybe next year you go to the Dolphins. Maybe this year you go to the Dolphins. Maybe there's something, that you can do for them, because they sure as hell can use you. And no offense to Tua. May God bless you and you stay healthy. Because like I said, I hate injuries more than anything. I hate when people say, oh, I hope that guy gets hurt because they're playing against him or something. That is the worst thing you could possibly say about somebody. But anyway, that's it. Joe Flacco now is about to play. They're just getting underway in 2 minutes. It's 4:23. The main thing I want to say is that Joe Flacco has 8.8 yards of completion this season. And he threw a lot of short passes, obviously, based off that number. This is when he was in Cleveland this year. A lot of short passes. 2 years ago, he averaged 323 yards a game. in a 5-game stretch, they went 4-1. This is with Cleveland. Joe Flacco did. This year, more of a dunk, more dink and dunk type of game, more of a short yardage thing. I wonder with the skill sets of Jamar Chase and T. Higgins, how that's going to work. And when they did try to go deep, the Browns, they were misfiring. So it wasn't a lot of deep plays. Jerry Jeudy has not got going, did not get going paired up with Flacco this year. I just want to know what it looks like when Jamar Chase, T. Higgins are on the field, and like when they're paired up now with Flacco. What does that look like? Is it just a product of Cleveland not being able to, they weren't able to connect offensively? It was a short sample size, but I want to know what it was. And I just thought that the game of Winston, yes, it might be a game where he might throw some picks. And Howell can get the ball downfield, he'll throw some picks. And Davis Mills hasn't had a lot of action. Derek Carr has had no action or training camp in a year. So they turned to Flacco, and I just want to know how it's going to work out. And I guess we're going to find out now. The game's about to begin. So anyway, thanks for listening. If you want to comment. You want to like. If you want to share. Most importantly, please just give this a listen, and that's what I'm really looking for at this point. So anyway, take care. Talk soon.